What's up, Taiwan? I'm Yvonne with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's representative to this year's APEC summit has arrived in South Korea. After landing, former Vice Premier Lin Xin-yi stressed that APEC is important for Taiwan, calling it an opportunity to join a global forum on equal standing with other economies. Taiwan's excluded from many international organizations due to objections from China. Lin also restated his goal of talking to other economic leaders during the forum to increase cooperation.
我也会利用这个机会，跟 APEC 的会员的领袖以及企业代表，完整的说明赖总统所指示的传达的重要的主张，分享我们在各领域的特色跟优势，尤其是半导体产业、AI、智慧医疗、中小企业的成功经验，来推销台湾。 吸引投资，促进交流合作，进一步来提升台湾在 APEC 的地位。
The APEC summit is expected to bring together representatives from 21 Pacific Rim economies to talk trade and economic cooperation. Our reporter Cadence Coranta is on the ground there and brings us this report.
The world is focusing in on Gyeongju, South Korea this week, where the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum is underway. Leaders from all over the world will gather here for meetings that could have a major impact on global trade and diplomacy. Highly anticipated is an expected meeting between the leaders of the world's two largest economies, U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping, their first face-to-face meeting since Trump began his second term. It comes during a fragile time in U.S.-China relations. Just weeks ago, the U.S. threatened to slap 100% tariffs on China after China tightened export controls on rare earth minerals, escalating an ongoing trade war. But the U.S.'s top negotiator says the two sides hammered out a preliminary framework for a trade deal in Malaysia over the weekend. And on Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had a phone call with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, setting the stage for their leaders to meet later this week.
I have a lot of respect for President Xi, and we are going to, I think we're going to come away with a deal.
Trump has also suggested the two sides could talk about Taiwan, something Taiwan's foreign ministry says it's watching out for. There are also other big meetings going on. Both Xi and Trump are set to meet South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, with Washington and Seoul expected to continue working out a tariff deal as negotiations have stalled. Meanwhile, Taiwan's representative to APEC, Lin Xin-yi, says he hopes to engage with other leaders at the forum, likely meaning some sideline meetings of his own, in line with goals set out by Taiwan President Lai Ching-te to increase international economic cooperation. Taiwan's foreign minister has also suggested there could be discussions with U.S. officials on tariffs. Lin, who is a senior advisor to Lai and chairman of a government-based venture capital firm, left Taiwan on Tuesday morning for South Korea.
我此行也会利用机会来向各会员国的领袖代表以及企业的代表来表达总统特别希望能够传达的我们的任务，能够把台湾。 分享说明我们在每个领域的特色跟我们的优势，特别是半导体、AI， 我们的智慧医疗、中小企业。
Global business leaders are also here in Gyeongju, including NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, who might deliver a speech this week on technologies such as AI and robotics. With so many world leaders and drivers of the global economy gathering here in this small city, security has been ramped up. Preparations are being made in front of both Xi and Trump's hotels with entrance marquees set up and strict security protocols near APEC venues. Over 18,000 police as well as the Coast Guard and SWAT teams are being mobilized as terrorism alert levels have been raised. And local media are reporting that large-scale protests planned throughout the week are putting the city on even higher alert. There are both anti-China and anti-U.S. protests planned, those against the U.S. protesting things like Trump's tariffs and what they call U.S. hegemonic behavior in general. So there's a feeling of anticipation here in Gyeongju, an otherwise quiet city where some of the world's biggest moments may happen in the next few days. From trade deals to high-stakes meetings, there's a lot to look out for. Justin Wu and Cadence Karanta in Gyeongju, South Korea for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's foreign minister says relations with the United States are stable. That's as U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping prepare to meet at the APEC summit.
因为我们台美的关系非常的稳定那除了建立在台湾关系法和6项保证之下，那我们也在不管是安全经贸还有各方面呢都有很密切的合作。
Taiwan has long enjoyed unofficial support from Washington, but there have been concerns in Taipei that Trump might use Taiwan as a bargaining chip in trade talks with China. China claims Taiwan and has threatened to take it by force if necessary. Trump and Xi are scheduled to meet on Thursday. President Trump is continuing his Asia trip with a stop in Japan. There, he and Japan's new Prime Minister Takaichi have signed documents reaffirming the U.S.-Japan alliance and pledging to work together on securing rare earths. John Van Trieste reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi Sanae greet each other in Tokyo's Akasaka Palace. For Takaichi, today is one of the first tests of her leadership. Japanese goods are subject to a 15% U.S. tariff rate, and the country's had to invest $550 billion in the U.S. But Washington wants more, greater access to the Japanese market for vehicles and agricultural goods. Still, Japan, with nearby rivals and hostile neighbors, has its own security interests to look after. And besides, the U.S. and Japan are working out a new tariff deal that might be more favorable to Tokyo. Japanese firms may even make inroads into the U.S. with all the Japanese investment going there. It was a meeting filled with warm words, with both sides placing high hopes on what's next in U.S.-Japan relations.
Through these efforts with you, Mr. President, I hope we can build a new golden age of the Japan-U.S. alliance, where both Japan and the United States will become stronger and also more prosperous.
The two leaders signed 2 documents, one on bringing about a golden age in U.S.-Japan ties, and another on working together to secure rare earth minerals, as Washington works to reduce its reliance on China by diversifying its supply of critical minerals. Trump has much to be pleased about besides all the Japanese investment. Takaichi's government will raise military spending to 2% of GDP early, meeting Trump's expectation that U.S. allies take more responsibility for their own defense. He praised Takaichi and pledged any U.S. help Japan may need.
Our country, I want to just let you know, anytime you have any question, any doubt, anything you want, any favors you need, anything I can do to help Japan, we will be there. We are an ally at the strongest level.
Takaichi and Trump also talked baseball. They spoke about Takaichi's mentor and Trump's friend, the late Prime Minister Abe Shinzo. And Takaichi said new cherry blossom trees and a Japanese fireworks show are coming to Washington next year to mark 250 years of U.S. independence. As Trump prepares to head to South Korea for a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, he leaves Japan with assurances that despite trade frictions, the U.S.-Japan alliance will thrive. Ryan Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The man charged with assassinating former Japanese Prime Minister Abe Shinzo has pleaded guilty on day 1 of his trial. Yamagami Tetsuya shot Abe with a homemade gun during a political rally in 2022. Abe died in hospital the same day. Yamagami blamed Abe for backing the Unification Church, a religious group Yamagami said had left his mother financially ruined. Yamagami's lawyer is not contesting the charges, but is arguing for a lighter sentence. Taiwanese officials and members of the Formosa Club, a group of pro-Taiwan European lawmakers, have announced new security initiatives.
Now, all of these efforts take place in a global context where the security of the Indo-Pacific and Euro-Atlantic regions have never been more closely linked. Taiwan, positioned in the front lines of authoritarian expansion, remains unwavering in its commitment to democracy. The
main item was an agreement on managing risks for undersea cables. This is an area of growing concern in both Europe and Asia due to suspected hostilities by China and Russia. Speakers focused on boosting societal resilience, resisting gray zone tactics, and expanding trade between democracies. A Latvian official also gave an update on Taiwan's drone diplomacy in Eastern Europe. He said drones are an important dual-use technology for both civilians and military that Europe is considering.
This is a really, I would say, a tectonic shift. I think there's a lot of opening up that we are right now fine-tuning. But yes, the time is of essence, and this is something that, at least in European Parliament, everyone says, let's approve and let's start to implement.
Members of the Formosa Club have wrapped up their visit to Taipei and say they will continue promoting Taiwan-EU ties after their visit. China has opened a criminal case against an outspoken ruling party lawmaker in Taiwan. As Alan Liu reports, it's part of Beijing's efforts to put pressure on Taiwan in any way it can.
China is stepping up its intimidation of Taiwan's public figures. On Tuesday, a Chinese city police authority, the Chongqing Municipal Public Security Bureau, accused ruling Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party lawmaker Pu Ma-shen of engaging in activities to split the country, and announced that it had opened a criminal case against him. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council, which handles cross-strait matters, condemned the move.
在我们中华民国宪法之下，我们的国人有免于受到中共跨境镇压的迫害，我们会全力保护国人的安全。
Shen also responded to the announcement, saying it weaponized the law.
藉由这样的一个威吓的方式以及法律战的方式，这个就是中国现在对台湾的阳谋。所以这其实不是针对我一个人，这其实是想要用这样来做一个杀鸡儆猴的动作。
Experts say the case against Shen may just be the beginning.
中国大陆它不会，我觉得它现在要产生吓阻作用，它不会只局限在特定某些人，只要你不认同他的统一主张的人，大概他都认为你是支持台独的，那你可能都是潜在被他列为追诉起诉的对象。
This isn't the only form of intimidation China has used recently against Taiwan. China's commercial satellite Jilin-1 recently released several high-resolution images of Taiwan taken from the space. Along with them was a statement calling for, quote, joint efforts toward national reunification. Defense experts say it's an example of the Chinese government weaponizing companies' attempts to show off its capabilities.
基本上，我觉得这个商用卫星公司它本身就是，它主要是向它客户去展示它有这样的能力，那当然这只是把有关单位把它拿来用作认知作战。
This comes as China ramps up military activity around Taiwan. On Monday, China's Eastern Theater Command released a video saying that multiple strategic bombers carry out mock combat drills in the airspace and seas surrounding Taiwan. Taiwan, meanwhile, is bolstering its own defenses. The Navy has just completed a series of drills, while the Army and Air Force are carrying out their own exercises involving realistic combat scenarios. The aim is to get troops more on a war footing and prepare for any eventuality. Delvin Chen and Ellen Liu for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has won big at this year's Asian sports stacking competition in China. The team brought home 43 gold, 26 silver, and 22 bronze. Indigenous athlete Sama Basal won 11 gold and 3 silvers herself and also broke 3 world records.
我们的国际大挑战是总冠军，2连霸的情况下，对我这次的成绩，我们觉得整体下来是表现得很好。
The athletes are back in Taiwan and preparing for their next major competition next year. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, take a look at this colorful stoop decorated with Lego flowers in New York. I'm Yvonne Yang. Take care, and I'll see you next time.